Hi everyone, Kelly here, and today I'm really excited to share with you my TBR list for middle grade March. And middle grade March is a readathon that happens for the entire month of March where you just read middle grade books. So books written for kids and kind of like the age 10 to 14 kind of category. I mean, sometimes you go a little younger, but anyways, it's children's books basically. And this is hosted by Krista from Books and Jams and Katie from Life Between Words. I'll link their announcement down below. And I just love this readathon. It's one of my favorite because I really do love middle grade books and I can read a lot of them in the month. Like last year I did where I read like a book a day. So I read over 30 books it turned out. And I'm not gonna do that again this year, but I have a lot of books that I want to read. And so I still have non-middle grade books I want to read, so I decided to split my TBR video into two sections. This will be all the middle grade books I want to read in March for middle grade March, and then at the end of the month I will put up my other TBR with other books that do not involve the readathon, but there were just so many and not everybody's gonna be interested in hearing about them, so I thought I would do the separate video. So I'm going to start off with the books that match the prompts that they came up with, but then you don't have to follow the prompts. If you read any middle grade books, it counts as participating. So I also have some that don't fit the prompts that I'm just going to read. And first I want to talk about the group book. As a group for middle grade March, we're reading The Book of Boy by Catherine Gilbert Murdoch. I don't know anything about this book. I think they said it was medieval, takes place medieval times. I don't know, I had never heard of it before they mentioned it, but it sounded like something that might be cute, and it's pretty short actually when you look at the size of the font and everything like that. So I figure I might as well give it a try because they usually pick good books for the group book. And then their first prompt is picking books with illustrations, which is usually pretty easy for middle grade. And I picked ones that are a bit young, so these might just be considered children's fiction, but they're ones I want to read. Two are Roald Dahl books, The Magic Finger and the Twits, which these are from my childhood. And actually when I was flipping through the Twits to look at like the picture, there's like a little bookmark from my like 4th grade teacher where Mrs. Ross tells me about this book. So that's kind of cute that this was like from when I was a kid. And I don't remember anything about these two stories. Last year I read several of the Roald Dahl books that were my favorites as a kid that I remembered, like James and the Giant Peach and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. These two, I don't remember what they're about at all. So I look forward to listening to these because lately I've been listening to Roald Dahl books because the narrators are really excellent. So I'll listen to both of those, which if you're interested, they're in the same audiobook. It's like a 2-hour audiobook that contains these two stories and one other short story. And then I'm also going to listen to The Trumpet of the Swan by E.B. White. He narrates the audiobook himself, and this is one that I feel like I can listen to in the car with my kids on the way to and from school. Sometimes Roald Dahl is not appropriate for like the age of my kids are because he does some kind of crazy things, but this one I feel will be appropriate for them to listen to, and it'll be a nice sweet story. I don't remember ever reading this as a kid, so I'm excited to read it because we listened to the Charlotte's Web last year and my kids loved it, listened to the audiobook, so I'm excited to get to that one. And all 3 of these have illustrations in it. And then the next prompt is to read books about books or stories. And right now I'm reading Inkheart, and if I finish Inkheart, then I would like to read Inkspell, the sequel, in March. If I don't finish Inkheart, that'll also fit this prompt since this is about a family who can like read stories into being, like read people in and out of stories and stuff like that. So it's a book about stories. And those are rereads. I read those many years ago and just wanted to refresh myself on the series and see if it's still one I really enjoy. And then I also want to continue the story, The Forbidden Library, which this is about also kids who can read things out of books or read themselves into books. So both of mine are basically about the same thing. And this is the second book, The Mad Apprentice. I read the first book a couple years ago, so I think I might have to go like read like a spoiler review to remember all the components of the first book. But I do want to continue this series because it was really cute, the first one, and I found it really interesting world and abilities with the books and everything like that. And so I really do need to continue it, so I'll probably just read a spoiler review instead of rereading the first book. And then the next prompt is to read a mystery. And I just don't normally read middle grade mystery books, so I'm kind of stretching this a bit. And I'm gonna read Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets because I want to continue my reread of Harry Potter this year. I'd read the first book last year and I wanna just read through the whole series this year. And I kind of feel like book 2 is like a mystery because they're trying to figure out who is opening the Chamber of Secrets. So I count that as a mystery. And then I also want to read The Mysterious Benedict Society by Trenton Lee Stewart. And I don't know much about this book, but it's got mystery or mysterious in the title. So I'm gonna say it's a mystery. I think it's about like kids who have like are really smart and like complete like intelligent exams and stuff like that, tests. So that's all I know about it. I don't really know what the plot is, but it sounded interesting, so I want to read that. And the next prompt is read a book set in another country. And I have been for the longest time wanting to read A Cato Witch by Nadia Korafor because I really liked her Binti series and I really wanted to read this duology. I just bought the second book, so if I like this one, I might read both of them in March. And this takes place in Nigeria, or at least the main character lives in Nigeria, so I think it takes place in Nigeria as well. And then I also was gonna read Sweep, the Story of a Girl and Her Monster by Jonathan Auxier, and I'm actually buddy reading this with Tia and all the books. And this was the book that the Middle Grade March hosts had picked last year as the group book, and I just didn't get to it. And so I've heard such great things about it. I do want to get to this, and this takes place in Victorian London. And that's about all I know. I know it's like about a girl who makes friends with a monster and that she's a chimney sweep, I believe. And so I'm very interested to read that one. And then the last prompt is to read a book that is an adaptation, like a TBR movie adaptation. And I'm also buddy reading A Little Princess by Frances Hodgins Burnett. I can't remember who all I'm buddy reading this with. I know I'm buddy reading it with Kara from A Wild Book Garden, but there's some other ladies involved as well. And I just don't remember. I need to like look at who all is reading it. And I had read this as a kid, but I haven't read it in my adulthood, so I don't really remember everything about it, but I know that it's a movie, probably several different movies because this book has been around forever, so there probably is several adaptations. And then I want to, if I can find the audiobook, because I would like to listen to it, I want to read The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman because I know his Dark Materials is now adapted into a TV show, and my husband really wants to watch the TV show, so I would like to read the series, but I kind of want to listen to it. I think the audiobook might be interesting for it, but because of the TV show being new, the audiobook has a huge hold at my library, so I don't know if I'll be able to listen to it in March. So I might have to read it physically, or I might just have to wait till later this year to read this one. Middle grade books that I really want to get to. I have 3 that are series that I want to continue, and so that's why I'm picking them up. And I have Wolf Speaker by Tamara Pierce. This is the second book in the Immortals. I read the first one I think last month, January, and loved it. So I'm very excited to continue this series. And then I have The Lost Kingdom of Bamar by Gail Carson Levine. And it wouldn't be Middle Grade March if I didn't read a Gail Carson Levine book. And I only have a few more of her books left. And I really want to read this one because it is, I think it's a prequel for The Two Princesses of Bamar, and that's my favorite of her books so far, so I do really want to get to this one. And I was a little worried that it wouldn't live up to it, but my friend Kara from Wild Book Garden again, she said it was just as good as the other one because she also really loves The Two Princesses of Bamar, so I really need to get to that book because I would like to read all of her books. Probably by the end of the year, I want to finish the ones I haven't read. And then the next sequel I want to read is Lodestar from the Keeper of the Lost Series City by Tiana Messenger. This is the 5th book, and I'm just like moving my way along through this series, really enjoying it. These are really huge, but I just am really invested in what's happening at this point in the series. And then I just have some books that I really wanted to read, like The Castle Behind Thorns by Marie Haskell. I had read The Princess Curse by her over the summer, I believe, and really enjoyed that one. And I own this one by her, so I wanted to continue reading her books. And then I have Counting by Sevens by Holly Goldberg Sloan, and I want to actually listen to the audiobook of this one because the audiobook is narrated by Robin Miles, who is the same narrator that did who is the same narrator that did all 3 of the Benty trilogy books, and I loved her in that, and then that made me pick up the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which Robin Miles also narrates, and so I'm going to pick up this in the audiobook version, even though I own the book, just because Robin Miles narrates it and I love her. And then I have a couple books I picked up from the library that I've been interested in. I have Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard by Rick Riordan. This is the first in that trilogy. And I have read Percy Jackson series and Heroes of Olympus, and I did really enjoy those, but I read them years ago, and so I'm just ready to try another Rick Riordan series, and I've heard good things about this one, so I figured I would get it from the library and try it. And then I picked up Green Glass House by Kate Milford, because once again, Kara from the Wild Book Garden, who I'm mentioning a lot in this video, she just reviewed this book like a couple weeks ago and said that it involves an adoption story. And if you guys know me, you know that I love to read stories about adoption since my kids were adopted. And I don't know if this is a contemporary or if this is a historical fiction book. I'm not sure. She just said that she thought that the adoption was portrayed well in this, so that's the reason I'm picking this up. I don't really know much of anything about it other than the fact that it involved the main character was adopted. So yeah, that is my very ambitious middle grade March TBR, but since they are middle grade books, they'll read fast, and several of these I'm going to get on audiobook. And since they're for a younger audience, some of them I will be able to listen to with my kids, and then others I can just listen to while I'm doing chores and all that stuff, and hopefully get through a good majority of these books that month. If you are going to participate in Middle Grade March, I'd love to hear what books you're thinking about reading or what your favorite middle grade book is. Talk to me down in the comments. Thanks. Bye.